Have you ever worked so hard on yourself, read the books, done the affirmations, set the goals, and still feel like you're dragging something heavy behind you that you couldn't quite, and you can't quite name it? I used to think that feeling was just me, not trying hard enough, but over the past few days, I've been learning something that has completely changed the way I look at personal growth. See, most of the time, the thing keeping us stuck isn't the lack of discipline, motivation, or willpower. It's the emotional energy we're still carrying, pockets of it stored inside of us, left over from old experiences and painful memories, and the belief we've created about ourselves as children. You see, those beliefs become little programs running around in the background of our life. Most of the time, we don't even realize that they're there. They simply play beneath they simply play beneath the surface, influencing the way we think, the decisions we make, and the relationship we choose, the opportunities we take or don't take, and even the way we see ourselves. You see, many of these programs were created in childhood from things our parents said, teachers told us, friends did to us, or experiences that shaped us while we were growing up. At one point, those programs may even have helped protect us. But as adults, they often do exactly the opposite. Instead of protecting us, they keep us trapped. It's like trying to pull a heavy sled up an icy hill. Where you're pushing with everything you've got, working hard, trying harder, reading more books, listening to more podcasts, setting more goals. But no matter how much effort you put in, you keep sliding backwards. And after a while, you begin to wonder if something is wrong with you. Now, this week in the beautiful seaside city of Brighton, England, taking part in a 1 week emotional freedom technique training, also known as EFT training course. Now, I know I talked a lot on this channel about how our childhood shapes the adults, and I know I'm doing that today, and how it makes us become who we are. But sitting in that room with 18 people and listening to their stories has been one of the most eye-opening experiences I've ever had for such a long time. Because out of the 18 people on the course, 16 were women, and most of them over the age of 40. And as each woman shared her story, something became incredibly clear. Many of them were still emotionally wounded from when they were 5, 6, 7, or 8 years old. I want you to think about that for a second. 40, 50, sometimes 60 years later, those childhood experiences were still influencing their confidence, their relationship, their careers, their happiness, and even their physical health. It made me realize just how much of our lives is still being shaped by stories we've created decades ago. Stories like, I'm not good enough. I have to please everyone. I'm not lovable. I'm not safe. I don't deserve success. I don't deserve happiness. And those stories don't just disappear because we get older. No, they continue to run in the background until we become aware of them and consciously choose to change them. And that's exactly what this training has been helping me do. Uncovering the old patterns and limited beliefs that have quietly been running my own life. So today, I want to share some of the biggest ones that I discovered, not because I've completely overcome them, but because I want you to know you're not alone. Maybe you'll recognize some of them, and some of these might also be your pattern. And maybe together we can begin letting go of the things that have been keeping us stuck for far too long. The first one is seeking permission. How many of us are still waiting for someone else to give us permission to live our own life? Permission to travel, permission to change careers, permission to leave that relationship, permission to start over, permission to simply be ourselves. It's almost as though we're waiting for someone to walk up to us and say, Estella, you know what? I officially give you permission to live your life now. And I know that sounds crazy. And the crazy thing is that permission is never coming. Another one, the fear of getting into trouble. How many of us as children, how many times were we afraid of making that mistake because you thought you would be shouted at, criticized, punished, or made to feel like you wasn't good enough or a fool? As children, those fears made sense. But as adults, them same fear often stops us from taking risk, speaking up, allowing your dreams or making decisions that are right for you. And for me, that old pattern has shown up as worry. What if I choose my own path and people reject me or abandon me? And when I really sat with that thought, I realized something. Why have I given many other people the power to decide how I get to live my life? Can any of you relate to that? Then there's the money. My relationship with money isn't really about money at all. It's tied to old belief planted years ago. Growing up, I heard things like, money doesn't grow on tree. I'm sure so many of you out there have also heard this. And sure, so many of you also heard that money is the root of all evil. So I never realized just how deeply those messages had taken root until I started doing this work. If I said I needed money or talked about talk about trying to increase the charges for my services, a part of me would still feel exposed and stiffen up as if I'm asking for a handout instead of offering something valuable in return. And when you carry that energy, people can feel it. If I don't truly believe in myself, if I believe I'm not worthy of receiving, I'll end up pushing opportunities away without even realizing it. And the truth is, money isn't the problem. The old stories I've been telling myself about money was the problem. And until I changed that story, I was always going to create the same result. Another pattern I uncovered was trust. And this one hit me harder than I expected. I realized I had a real struggle with trusting myself. I questioned my decision. I second guessed whether I was making the right choice. But if I'm honest, my biggest challenge isn't just trusting myself, it's trusting other people. You see, when you've been let down enough times, sometimes inside of you start to change. Broken promises, relationships that didn't work out, people who said they would be there but disappointed you when you needed them the most. Every disappointment leaves a little crack in your ability to trust. And after enough of those experiences, you stop depending on anyone. So how many of you have said, I'll just do it myself because I can't trust anyone else to do it properly? I know I've said that so many times. Now at first, I feel like it's strength. Yes. Like independence. Yeah, I'm independent. I don't need you. But over time, that way of living becomes exhausting. You carry everything on your own shoulder. You never ask for help. And somewhere deep down, you've convinced yourself that if you rely on someone, they're only going to disappoint you. And then one day you look around and you wonder why you feel so lonely. The strangest thing though, loneliness isn't always about being alone, no. Sometimes you're surrounded by family, friends, work colleagues, and you still feel that isolation because you've built walls so high that nobody can truly get close enough to support you. And that was a difficult truth I had to face. I realized I wasn't just protecting myself from disappointment, I was also protecting myself from love, connection, and support. So now that you've heard some of my own patterns, I hope you can see that you're not alone. I want to share, and you see, I wanted to share them with you because for years I honestly believed I had already dealt with many of those limiting beliefs. I thought I'd healed from them. I thought I had moved on. But what this training has shown me is that healing isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's a bit like going to the gym. You don't go once and get fit. No, of course not. You keep showing up. You keep strengthening the muscles. And our minds are exactly the same. You see, if I stop doing daily meditation, if I stop paying attention to that little voice inside of my head, if I spend too much time around negative or toxic people, those old patterns quietly creep back in. And before I know it, I'm reacting instead of responding. The difference now is that I notice it much sooner. Instead of letting those patterns take over for weeks, months, or sometimes even years, I catch them early, acknowledge them, and I choose a different response. And I choose a different response that works for me. And awareness is where healing begins. So I want you to remember, you are not the pattern you inherited. You are not the story a 5-year-old version of you decided was true. Those are things that happened to you, things you've carried, things you've allowed to put down. They are never who you are. My name is Estella. This is Redefine Her World, where we rise together, one brave step at a time. And if this message touched you, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with another woman who may also need to hear this message. Thank you once again for joining me today. I love you so much. Bye.